It was a sunny holiday morning, rare these days. I was enjoying a peaceful moment when I heard footsteps entering the living room. To my surprise, it was Kevin and Elizabeth, his sister, dragging in loads of baggage. They were both breathing heavily, but upon seeing me, they plastered on sarcastic smiles. Then, without hesitation, Kevin dropped a bombshell. "From today, we're moving in with you. If you don't like it, divorce me and leave." I froze in shock. Before I could even process his words, Kevin and Elizabeth started spreading their belongings all over the living room. My heart pounded as I watched them take over my space, as if they owned it. Stella, Kevin's mother, followed closely behind, looking somewhat apologetic. I opened my mouth, hesitating before whispering, "It's okay, but are you sure?" I hadn't even finished my sentence when Kevin's face turned pale. Without another word, he bolted out of the house. Minutes later, my phone rang. The moment I answered, Kevin's furious voice erupted through the speaker, loud enough for even Elizabeth to hear. "Are you kidding me? Why didn't you say anything before?" he roared. I sighed, feigning innocence. "Oh, I thought I mentioned it before." There was a pause. Then Kevin's voice came back, quieter but still sharp. "Anyway, I'm coming back." The line went dead. Elizabeth looked like she might faint after hearing Kevin's outburst. I smiled, my voice dripping with amusement. "I'm looking forward to Kevin coming back," I said casually. Elizabeth's shoulders twitched in surprise. She had no idea what was coming. Brace yourself, I thought. The retaliation starts now. My name is Madison. I'm 45 years old and work in an office. Life had become incredibly hectic ever since I was transferred to a demanding department last year. Balancing my career and home life was already exhausting, but dealing with Kevin made it worse. I married Kevin when I was 40. We had met at a company year-end party, where he was invited as a guest. As his hostess for the evening, we hit it off quickly, bonding over the fact that we were from the same hometown. Kevin, 5 years my senior, was assertive and charming, qualities that seemed appealing at the time. I had almost given up on marriage before meeting him, so when he proposed after a year of dating, I accepted without hesitation. There was no wedding ceremony. Kevin dismissed it as a waste of money. That had left me a little sad, but looking back, maybe that was the first sign I should have reconsidered marrying him. "Hey, you slacked off on the laundry again, didn't you?" Kevin's sharp voice cut through the quiet evening as soon as he stepped inside. Kevin was what you'd call a henpecked husband, not by me, but by his own mother and sister. Before our marriage, he had lived alone and knew how to do household chores. Yet, after we got married, he suddenly decided that men shouldn't do housework. "I was planning to do it tonight," I replied, exhausted. "I just got home late from working overtime." But Kevin wasn't satisfied. His eyebrows furrowed in irritation. "Don't talk back, wife." I clenched my jaw. Coming home to be yelled at only drained me more. I had spent the entire day working to support our household, and yet, Kevin acted as if I were some lazy servant who had failed him. Little did he know I had a plan. "Who do you think provides the food you eat?" Kevin sneered as he spoke, his tone dripping with arrogance. The irony of his words made me want to laugh out loud, but I swallowed my frustration. The truth was, I earned more than Kevin. He had known this before we got married, agreeing to a dual-income lifestyle. Yet, only a year into our marriage, he seemed to have completely forgotten. At first, I argued back. I pointed out that I worked overtime, that I was exhausted, that I was the one keeping our household afloat financially. But Kevin never took responsibility. Instead, he got angrier, yelled louder. Eventually, I stopped fighting and started apologizing just to keep the peace. "I'm sorry, it was my fault." Kevin's expression would shift from rage to smug satisfaction. "Do you really think so?" he'd ask, expecting me to grovel. "Yes, thank you," I'd reply, forcing a smile. "It's because of your hard work that we can live this life." That was all he needed. His mood would instantly improve, and he'd hum a little tune as he walked off to take a bath. At first, I convinced myself this was normal. Maybe this was just how relationships worked. Maybe this was just Kevin's way of dealing with stress. But after 3 years, I was exhausted. I considered divorce. But I hesitated, not because of Kevin, but because of my in-laws. Kevin's parents, Mia and Ricky, were wonderful people. Mia, my mother-in-law, would take me out to lunch once a month, and Ricky, my father-in-law, always remembered my birthday, sending thoughtful gifts. Their kindness meant the world to me, especially since I had lost my own parents early in life. They became like real family to me, something I had been missing for so long. At family gatherings, Kevin would put on a different face. He smiled more, spoke kindly, and even showed me affection. Those moments made me doubt my decision to leave. Maybe things weren't so bad. Maybe I could endure Kevin's behavior. But there was one person I couldn't tolerate, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, Kevin's younger sister, lived nearby. She had been divorced due to her infidelity, and since then, she lived alone in a small apartment. I never liked Elizabeth. And to be honest, the feeling was mutual. She never missed a chance to badmouth me, even in front of Kevin. What made it worse was that Kevin didn't just ignore her comments, he joined in. Instead of defending me, he encouraged her, laughing at my expense. Elizabeth had a daughter, Stella, but she had lost custody to her ex-husband. Stella, however, visited her mother twice a month. Each time, Elizabeth would pull the same stunt. "Just a minute, Madison. Please feed Stella something delicious. I'm heading out now." "Wait, what?" Thanks, bye." Before I could object, Elizabeth would rush out the door, leaving Stella in my care. It happened every single time. At first, I was annoyed. I wasn't a babysitter. But then, I looked at Stella, her big, innocent eyes filled with guilt, her small hands nervously clutching the hem of her dress. "I'm sorry," she'd whisper. I couldn't ignore such an honest and kind-hearted girl. So I fed her. I took her to fun places. I made sure she had a good time. "Madison, thank you always." "It's okay. Did you have fun?" "Yes. It was really fun." "Can I come again?" she'd ask timidly, watching my face for approval. How could I say no? I didn't have children of my own, so Stella quickly became dear to me. But as much as I adored her, one thing kept bothering me. Elizabeth was never around when her daughter visited. One evening, I finally brought it up to Kevin. "Hey, whenever Stella comes over, Elizabeth is never here. Can't she spend a little more time with her?" I had meant well. I wasn't trying to criticize Elizabeth. I was only thinking of Stella.
But Kevin didn't see it that way.
His face turned red, and his expression twisted in fury. "Elizabeth is hurt from her divorce. Unlike you, she's delicate. And yet, you blame her?" "No, it's not like that. I was just wondering where she goes every time after dropping Stella off." Kevin slammed his fist on the table. "There's no need for you to know. Just shut up and listen." I fell silent. There was no point in arguing with a man who refused to hear me. After I apologized, just to end the fight, Kevin's mood suddenly changed. As if nothing had happened, he grabbed his coat and started heading for the door. "I'm heading out," he said flatly. "Where are you going?" I asked. "It's my business. You just stay quiet and say, 'Have a nice day.'" And with that, he slammed the door behind him. I sat in the quiet, empty house, tears stinging my eyes. That night, for the first time, I seriously considered divorce. Even though I had thoughts of leaving Kevin, I still hadn't made up my mind. Then one afternoon, Mia invited me out for lunch. I hadn't gone out in a long time, so I decided to go. As I was getting ready, Kevin noticed. "Where are you going on your day off?" he asked suspiciously. "I'm going to lunch with your mom," I replied. His eyes darkened. "With Mom," he muttered. Then, in a sharp tone, he added, "You better not talk about." But before he could finish, my phone rang. It was Mia. "Madison, I'll see you soon." I glanced at Kevin, whose expression had suddenly shifted. He looked nervous. Why was he so anxious about me meeting his mother? I didn't know it then, but I was about to uncover something that would change everything. "Elizabeth? Why not?" I asked, confused by Kevin's sudden hostility. His expression twisted with irritation. "Can't you think a little? You really are stupid. Just go already, and don't talk about Elizabeth." Before I could respond, Kevin shoved me toward the door, pushing me out of the house. I stood there in shock, barely able to process what had just happened. Why was he acting so defensive? Still unsettled, I headed to lunch with Mia. Over lunch, I decided to bring up what had been bothering me. By the way, Elizabeth is coming over, right? I asked casually. Mia sighed deeply, her expression darkening. You knew? I asked, surprised by her reaction. I thought so, she replied, shaking her head. She set down her cup and looked at me apologetically. Apparently, Stella told me she was bothering you by coming to see me. My heart ached. Stella was such a sweet girl, always considerate of others, even when her own mother abandoned her. Mia continued, her voice filled with frustration. I thought I raised Elizabeth strictly, but maybe this is a reaction. She's into nightclubs now. I froze. Nightclubs? Mia nodded grimly. That's right. And she seems to have accumulated a considerable amount of debt. I was stunned. Elizabeth always carried herself as if she were well off, dressed in expensive, branded clothes, flaunting luxury handbags. That can't be, I muttered. She always looks like she has money. Mia sighed again, looking even more troubled. That child, we've cut ties with her. So, Madison, you should too. I stared at her, my mind spinning. They cut ties with their own daughter? Before I could ask why, Mia continued. Kevin is probably spoiling Elizabeth right now. I swallowed hard. Of course he was. Then Mia revealed something even more shocking. When Elizabeth's affair came to light, Kevin kept clinging to her ex-husband, begging him to forgive her. I blinked. He what? And when the divorce was finalized, Kevin even paid off her debts once. It was as if everything suddenly clicked into place. Kevin had always put Elizabeth first. No matter what she did, no matter how badly she hurt others, Kevin would defend her. And I was supposed to just accept it? That conversation with Mia was an eye-opener. When I returned home that evening, I sat in silence for a long time, thinking. Kevin was never going to change. He would always prioritize Elizabeth. He would always treat me as disposable. I had been holding on to this marriage because of my in-laws, but even they had cut ties with Elizabeth. That meant there was nothing left tying me to this marriage either. That night, I made my decision. I'm thinking of divorcing Kevin, I told Mia the next time we met. She reached across the table and held my hand gently. I'm sorry for all the trouble, Madison, but I want you to know I'll support you. I swallowed back tears. Thank you, I whispered. If my own mother had been alive, I wondered, would she have done the same? I knew Kevin wouldn't agree to a divorce easily. He wasn't the type to let go of something he believed he owned. So, I started preparing carefully. With the help of my in-laws, I gathered plenty of evidence about Kevin's financial support of Elizabeth, his verbal abuse, and his refusal to contribute to our household. I even discovered more shocking truths about where his money had been going. Every step I took was calculated. I wanted Kevin to be completely blindsided. And then, just as I was finalizing my plans, Kevin and Elizabeth unknowingly set up their own downfall. One morning, on a rare sunny holiday, I heard footsteps echoing through the house. Kevin and Elizabeth stormed into the living room, carrying loads of baggage. They were both breathing heavily, but when they saw me, they flashed sarcastic smiles. Then, Kevin spoke the words that sealed his fate. We're moving in with you starting today. If you don't like it, divorce me and leave. I stared at him, my mind numb. Before I could even respond, Kevin and Elizabeth started spreading their belongings across the living room as if they owned the place. Stella followed behind them, looking apologetic. At that moment, I knew I wasn't just leaving. I was going to make sure they regretted ever taking me for granted. I stared at Elizabeth, my expression unreadable. It's okay, but are you sure? I mean, Kevin's face turned pale the moment I spoke. Without another word, he bolted out of the house. A few minutes later, my phone rang. I answered, only to be met with Kevin's furious voice. He was shouting so loudly that even Elizabeth, who was still standing in the living room, could hear him. Are you kidding me? Why didn't you say anything? I smiled to myself. So he finally realized it. "Oh, I thought I mentioned it before," I said, feigning innocence. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Kevin exhaled sharply. "Anyway, I'm coming back," he barked before abruptly hanging up. Elizabeth, who had been eavesdropping, looked like she might faint from the way Kevin had yelled. I turned to her, watching her squirm under my gaze. "I'm looking forward to Kevin coming back," I said lightly. Elizabeth's shoulders twitched in surprise. She had no idea that her game was over. "Brace yourself," I whispered. "The retaliation starts now." As soon as Kevin returned, he stormed into the house, his face twisted with anger. "Elizabeth, what's this about debts?" "I didn't hear anything about it," he demanded. Elizabeth stiffened but quickly put on an innocent act. "It's just a small debt," she said, avoiding eye contact. I couldn't help but laugh. "Amazing," I said, shaking my head. Only Elizabeth could call $150,000 a small debt. Elizabeth's head snapped toward me, her eyes widening in shock. "Oh, you didn't know I found out." I smiled sweetly. "Yeah, $150,000 is quite a lot, isn't it? But I suppose for a rich woman like you, it's just pocket change." Elizabeth's face drained of color. She glanced at Kevin, who was staring at her in disbelief. "Wait,
What?
Kevin stammered. That's when Elizabeth completely lost her composure. "I mean, once I get this house, it'll be fine. He'll come back to me then," she blurted out. Kevin turned to her, confused. "Who? What are you talking about?" Elizabeth clamped a hand over her mouth, realizing she had said too much. "Oh, don't stop now," I said, crossing my arms. "Go ahead and explain." Elizabeth shot me a death glare, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook. "Let me do it for you, then," I continued. "Elizabeth planned to kick me out of the house. Then, eventually, she was going to kick you out too, Kevin." Kevin's face contorted with disbelief. "That's a lie," he shouted. I shrugged. "She just admitted it, didn't she?" Kevin looked at Elizabeth, as if begging her to deny it. Elizabeth hesitated, then let out a small laugh. "So what?" she scoffed. "Once we sell this place, I can pay off my debts and fund your nightclub boyfriend." I finished for her. Kevin staggered back as if he'd been physically struck. "Was it all a lie?" he whispered. Elizabeth let out an exaggerated sigh. "Kevin, don't be dramatic. I was planning to live with Stella, so let us stay, okay?" she said, changing tactics. Kevin clenched his fists. "You are planning to work and support both Stella and me?" he asked, his voice laced with desperation. My head throbbed from the sheer absurdity of it all. "You can't even support me, but you are going to support your sister and niece?" I muttered. Elizabeth, completely unbothered by Kevin's reaction, simply shrugged. "You're just an ATM, big brother," she said. "Once we sell the house, I can go back to him. Won't you listen to my request?" Kevin looked like he had just been stabbed in the heart. "ATM? What's that supposed to mean?" he roared. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. "Oh, don't be so sensitive," she said. Kevin and Elizabeth began screaming at each other, leaving me out of the conversation entirely. Their argument was loud, ugly, and ridiculous. And then, unexpectedly, the person who put an end to it wasn't me. "Enough!" The sharp voice cut through their bickering. Both Kevin and Elizabeth turned to look at the source.
Stella.
She stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable.
Mom.
"Uncle Kevin, I don't want to live together. I only came today to say goodbye." A stunned silence filled the room. "Goodbye? What do you mean?" Elizabeth stammered. Stella let out a deep sigh and looked straight at her mother. "Mom, you're not interested in my life, are you?" Elizabeth frowned. "Of course I am." Stella ignored her. "I think I told you before, but I'm going to study abroad in high school. That's why I came today, to say goodbye." Elizabeth's eyes widened. "I didn't hear anything about that," she shrieked. Stella scoffed. "Because you never listen. You're always chasing after men." Elizabeth opened her mouth to argue, but Stella didn't let her. "I don't need a mom like that," she said coldly. "For me, Madison is my mom." Silence. My breath caught in my throat. "Huh? What do you mean?" Elizabeth snapped, glaring at her daughter as if she were an enemy. Before I could process what was happening, Stella walked up to me and wrapped her arms around me. "Thank you, Madison," she whispered, "for holding my hand, for the delicious meals, for listening to me, for taking me places. You felt like a real mom." Tears welled up in my eyes. I had always cared for Stella, but I never imagined she saw me this way. "Stella," I choked out. "I was happy to be with you too. Do your best over there, okay?" She smiled. "I will. Can I still call and message you?" I hugged her tightly. "Of course." Elizabeth, watching us with a mix of resentment and desperation, suddenly smirked as if she had an idea. "Well then, Stella, I'll go with you." Stella and I both turned to her, horrified. "Why?" Stella asked, clearly disgusted. "It's hard to live alone, isn't it?" Elizabeth said, "Let's live together. They'll pay for our living expenses, right?" I stared at her, utterly astounded by her audacity. Stella, beside me, looked just as appalled. Unaware of our reactions, Elizabeth began fantasizing about her new life. "Mom, while Stella's at school, we can go to the beach. Or shopping. When she's at her part-time job, I'll take a nap. And at night, I'll go out for a bit." She grinned, completely oblivious. Stella let out a sudden burst of laughter. Elizabeth had truly lost her mind. Elizabeth's smug grin faltered when Stella let out a burst of laughter. "What's so funny?" Elizabeth asked, her tone sharp. Stella wiped a tear from the corner of her eye, shaking her head in amusement. "It's hilarious," she said. "Why would I want to live with you?" Elizabeth's expression twisted in anger. But. "Besides," Stella interrupted, "I'm going to be in a dormitory. So you can't come." Elizabeth's face turned an alarming shade of red, her hands clenched into fists. Just as she opened her mouth to lash out, another voice rang through the living room. "Enough already." Everyone turned in surprise. Ricky, Elizabeth's father, stood at the entrance, his face grim. Beside him, Mia, his wife, stood with her arms crossed, eyebrows raised in anger. "Dad," Elizabeth muttered, eyes darting between them. Ricky took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "I came here after hearing from Madison," he said, his voice steady. "And what do I find? More of your nonsense." Elizabeth flinched. "How long will you keep troubling others?" Mia added, stepping forward. "Mom, this is a misunderstanding. Stella decided this on her own." Elizabeth insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. Before she could say another word, Mia raised her hand.
Slap.
A loud sound echoed through the living room. Silence fell over us. Elizabeth's mouth fell open as she held her cheek in shock. "That's awful. How could you hit me?" she gasped. Mia, her face calm but unwavering, met Elizabeth's gaze. "You deserved it," she said firmly. "I was wrong to leave you alone all those years ago. But I won't let you continue causing trouble for others. We've arranged for you to stay with a relative. You're going there now." Elizabeth's face drained of color. She turned to Kevin, her last hope. "Kevin, help me," she pleaded. But Kevin averted his gaze, saying nothing. For the first time, Elizabeth looked truly alone. Ricky took her firmly by the arm and led her toward the door. I exhaled. It was over. As the door shut behind them, Kevin turned to me, his expression uneasy. "Hey, I'm sorry," he muttered. "I should have listened to you more. I promise from now on." Mia scoffed. "What a naive thought," she said coldly. Kevin blinked in confusion. "Mia?" She sighed, shaking her head. "I warned you not to get involved with Elizabeth. I told you not to prioritize her over your marriage. But you didn't listen." She turned away, her voice emotionless. "Now the only choice left is divorce." Kevin's face went pale. He looked at me, searching for support. I smiled at him, a final, knowing smile. "Let's get a divorce," I said. Kevin's mouth opened, then closed. Before he could stammer out a response, I continued. "I'll also be claiming alimony. For your verbal abuse. And, let's see, maybe for infidelity too." Kevin stumbled back. "Infidelity? What are you talking about?" he spluttered, feigning ignorance. I let out a small, tired laugh. I pulled out a few photos from my bag and laid them on the table. You recognize this woman, don't you? Kevin's face drained of all color. Did you take secret photos of me? He asked, his voice rising. If someone is doing something they shouldn't, isn't that their fault? I countered smoothly. Kevin opened his mouth to argue, but found himself out of excuses. His shoulders slumped. I pulled out the divorce documents and placed them in front of him. Sign them. Kevin hesitated, but Mia simply crossed her arms. Sign them, Kevin, she repeated. With no way out, Kevin reluctantly took the pen and scribbled his name on the papers. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. After everything was finalized, I turned to him one last time. Thank you for everything, I said with a smile. Though I made more money, did all the housework, and handled everything else, I was still expected to support you. I let out a soft laugh. I was the one holding everything together. Now that I'm gone, take care of yourself, Kevin. Kevin had nothing to say. I bid farewell to Mia, gathered my things, and walked out of the house. For the first time in 5 years, I was free. That night, I stayed in a nearby hotel. A clean room, a soft bed, silence. No one to complain about how I folded laundry. No one to yell at me over Elizabeth. No one to treat me like an afterthought. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The next morning, I filed for divorce. Kevin sent the alimony payment within a week. Not because he was responsible, but because he had to. Since he had drained his savings supporting Elizabeth, his parents had paid it up front. They made it clear he would be paying them back in full. And life? It didn't get better for Kevin. After losing his job, his family sent him to live with a distant relative on a farm. No weekends off. No easy escape. No luxury. The mountain roads were too dangerous for him to drive, and without a car, he was stuck. I thought it was tough, but I didn't feel sorry for him. His affair partner? She was a club hostess who had no idea Kevin was even married. When I met her, she apologized, even returned the expensive branded bags he had gifted her. I sold them. With the money, I treated Stella to lunch. As for Elizabeth, she was sent to a seaside town to work under a strict relative. Gone were the days of luxury and self-indulgence. Her once manicured nails? Ruined. Her designer clothes? Replaced with work uniforms. She had even fallen behind on child support payments for Stella, her own daughter. Her relatives had covered the payments, but she now worked unpaid to repay them. Would she change? Maybe. But that was no longer my problem. Stella, meanwhile, successfully went abroad for her studies. She was thriving. She messaged me frequently, sending updates about her classes and her new best friend, a girl she shared a dorm with. One day, she told me she planned to bring her friend home during a long break. Can you host us for sightseeing? She asked. Of course, I said without hesitation. My life was still busy, but this kind of busy felt fulfilling. No more resentment. No more loneliness. One day, when I dropped Stella off, I finally met her father, Elizabeth's ex-husband. He was kind, thoughtful. We exchanged contact information so we could stay updated on Stella. And soon after, we started going out together. It wasn't planned. It wasn't forced. But for the first time in years, I felt peace in someone's presence. Even I was surprised by my own feelings. One day, during a video call, Stella grinned at me. When are you getting remarried? She teased. I laughed. I'm not thinking about it yet, I admitted.
But then I paused.
But if he feels the same way, maybe someday. Stella beamed. To me, she was like a true daughter. And if I could become a real family with her, it would make me happier than I ever imagined. With that hope in my heart, I moved forward into my new life. And this time, I was finally free. Please feel free to comment below if you like this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.